Today we're going to talk about protagonists, and specifically how to write them when they're OP as fuck. There are a whole bunch of them, some good, some not so good, but this video is going to focus mainly on Saitama instead of a character like Superman because, well, I'm equal parts terrified and excited for Season 3. God, I hope the animation quality is more consistent this go around. But I'm getting off topic. Anyway, here's how to write an overpowered protagonist. I like working in fives, so let's break down the process of writing an OP protagonist into 5 sub-tenets. Our first tenet of writing OP characters is 1. Spectacle. Overpowered characters need to be able to do things that the other characters can't. Depending on the rules of your setting or magic system, maybe they can break one of the rules or bend them in such a way that gives them a leg up on other characters. The point here is that you want the character's power to feel unique, but you also want it to actually fit into the world that you've built. Think in terms of set pieces or big events that contain important story moments for your narrative. Whenever your protagonist fights, it needs to be important, or at the very least highly entertaining. In Saitama's case, seriously think about how many actual fights he's had in the story so far. Really. The only character who hasn't been incapacitated by a single punch is Lord Boros. Even then, Boros was still much weaker than Saitama. Part of maintaining spectacle involves the idea of novelty. Look at all the major battles in One Punch Man. They've mainly involved everyone else trying to survive while Saitama makes his way to the fight. This novelty can be most readily seen in Dragon Ball Z, specifically if you want another example. Goku was out of commission for most of the show and usually only comes up to fight the main bad guy of the arc. ONE or One took his cues from the late Akira Toriyama in that regard. And Saitama serves much of the same purpose. He's kept out of the fight until the final stretch, then he comes in to get the win with an over-the-top one-hit kill. Even the One Punch Man video game leans into this spectacle. It's a team-based arena fighter, and if you select Saitama as one of your team members, you're left to fight without him until he arrives, at which point he does so much damage that most other characters aside from like Saitama himself can't survive more than one hit. Basically, in your own stories, limit this overpowered character's usage, and when they do enter the fight, make sure they end it with some flair. Next, we need to talk about relativity, the actual reason your OP character is fun to watch. Tenet 2, Relativity. This tenet ties in closely with Tenet 1 in that you need something to compare your overpowered character to. Power scaling is extremely important in any story involving conflict of any kind, be it physical, magical, strategic, political, or otherwise. This is especially true if you want to have an overpowered character in your story without ruining it. You need to have characters that are considered weak, mid-tier, and strong, scattered throughout your cast, with your overpowered character sitting a notch or two above the in-universe strong characters. Then, the next step is to let these regular characters engage and fight with each other, which is why I said it ties closely with Tenet 1. By keeping your overpowered character out of the fight, and showing what the normal people in your world are capable of, you can further draw a distinction between the various tiers of power, which in turn makes your OP protagonist stand out even more, by not even being in the mix. If you don't keep the top levels of power in your story interesting, you run into a problem that was kind of explained in Incredibles 1.
And when I'm old and I've had my fun, I'll sell my inventions so that everyone can be superheroes. Everyone can be super. And when everyone's super, no one will be.
To elaborate on Syndrome's quote, you've got to have key characters all along the power spectrum take the lead of the plot in order to get the audience to care. Your overpowered character is never in danger, but everyone else is. Show your other characters struggling, training, winning, losing, and let your OP hero stand above all of that. To tie this back to Saitama, notice how powerful Silver Fang, Boros, and like Tatsumaki are. They're in the strong tier of the cast, but they are still nothing compared to Saitama. Think about the amount of trouble that everyone had with the Sea King, who is on par with S-class heroes. Let the normies in your setting do their thing and lead your subplots. It makes your overpowered character all the more fun when they actually do show up. By letting your more normal characters in the setting hold the spotlight, we see how fragile they are, and you allow the next tenet to take shape by introducing stakes to the narrative. Tenet 3. Stakes. Now we're going to get to the point where you actually have to write a compelling character for whom there are no physical threats. Stakes. How do we make stakes for someone who can never lose? Well, it's actually pretty simple and ties into what we mentioned before. Saitama is basically invincible, but his friends and associates are not and are very much in danger of dying. As powerful as Genos is, he gets torn to shreds, like a lot. King is literally a normal fucking dude, no powers, no fighting skills. As an unrelated example, take Superman. He's only got one real weakness, and if you don't have access to it, you can't hurt him unless you're comparably strong. However, Superman stories aren't about whether or not he can win. They're more often about whether or not he can save everyone from the crisis. Superman is bulletproof. Lois Lane is not, and he can't be everywhere at once. Saitama is much the same way. The cities of One Punch World, or whatever you want to call it, are torn to shreds regularly, and a lot of people are killed by monsters all the time. The supporting cast has dozens of close calls throughout the show. In fact, it's kind of a miracle that One Punch Man's body count of named characters is so low. Saitama is in his own league of power, but just like Superman, he can't be in two places at once, and can only save the people wherever he happens to be. You can see it in the screen time allocation of the supporting cast, as in, the story is almost not even about Saitama. A large portion of the plot centers on regular heroes around him and their desires to save people, grow stronger, or climb the rankings. In Saitama's case, his stakes are more internal. They're centered on the personal challenges he faces, which takes us to our next tenet. Tenet 4. Challenge. One Punch Man is unique in this regard. Superman at the very least has a few bad guys in his rogues gallery that are equal to or stronger than him, like Zod or Darkseid. Those characters are meant to push Superman physically and philosophically. Saitama doesn't have this tenet working for him, and in a weird, twisted way, the challenge tenet is fulfilled by virtue of him not being able to engage with it. The lack thereof is the centerpiece to his inner conflict. The closest thing to a challenge so far was watching Saitama fight Lord Boros, but even then, it was only a challenge by way of Boros being strong enough to survive getting hit by Saitama more than once. Saitama's actual challenges aren't physical, they're existential and tied to his personal fulfillment and self-worth. You can challenge an overpowered character like Saitama by giving them a problem they can't solve with their preferred methods. Remember how the Hero Association ignored and downplayed Saitama's abilities, or how devastated he is whenever he thinks he's found a good fight, but it ends in one hit? This is Saitama's challenge, the fact that he is in search of it, yet it always eludes him. It's in and of itself his character's way of fulfilling the challenge tenet, and it's in turn why he's so fun to watch. Without challenge, Saitama is left standing alone at the top of Mount Everest searching for meaning, which is our last tenet. Tenet 5. Meaning. If you've been paying attention to the story of One Punch Man, you'll notice that Season 2 Saitama is a bit listless and kind of depressed, almost. At least until he meets King and they start hanging out. Saitama even joins a martial arts tournament to experience actual fighting techniques instead of just weird superpowers. He's clearly narrowing his search for meaning, and in the case of the tenet, meaning in this context means that your OP character should have some kind of goal or deeper desire that's unrelated to their strength. They're already the strongest, right? So why would they want to get any stronger? Saitama doesn't want to get stronger, he wants to be challenged in the line of duty as a hero. However, the overall thread of Season 2 sees Saitama starting to collect an entourage of associates that he both learns from and teaches himself. Genos, Fubuki, King, etc. His strength is actually pulling people into his orbit that in turn are starting to give his life meaning. He becomes a mentor, a friend, even a symbol. The irony is that Saitama's greatest strength isn't really how hard he can punch. It's the way his power creates relationships that give him purpose. This is important because it shows us something. Saitama is actually looking for connection and purpose, and this is the key to writing your own overpowered characters. An overpowered character already has what most protagonists spend the entire story chasing, power. So their story needs to be about something else. Saitama, again, he doesn't want to get stronger. He just wants to feel like being a hero actually matters. Now let's run it back and synthesize. All together now, the 5 tenets of writing an overpowered protagonist are spectacle, relativity, stakes, challenge, and meaning. By combining these 5 tenets, you can do exactly what One Punch Man does. Turn a character who should be boring, a guy who never loses fights, into someone who's fascinating to watch. And that's the secret. An overpowered protagonist isn't compelling because of how strong they are. They're compelling because of what that strength takes away from them and what they're still searching for despite it. Now, as for One Punch Man Season 3, look, I'm cautiously optimistic. The last 2 episodes of Season 2 showed a real spike in animation quality, and if they can maintain that, or better, we're in for something great. Season 1 is probably never going to be topped since it was literally animated by a dream team of the best action animators in the industry, and it's highly unlikely that those guys are all going to be on the same project ever again. But hey, a guy can dream. Here's to Season 3, and whatever comes with it, good or bad. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to see me draw stuff and post memes and shit. Otherwise, this has been Evan from Merriweather Designs, and I'll see you all next time, whenever that is.